Good evening, Lake Orion. Welcome to History Now here on ONTV. I'm your host, Anthony Taramina, and I want to share this week about the history of the current league that our Lake Orion Dragons are in, the Oakland Activities Association, the OAA. The OAA actually started in 1994, and it actually lasts until present. The reason why I want to share this is because I want to give viewers the idea and the details of the history of the OAA, what it stands at present, and what its future will be, and what its future could be. And there's a lot of uncertainty at present, but there's also a lot of optimism as well. I want to talk about why the original idea of the OAA was formed in 1994. There was a goal, there was an intent to form a mega conference, preferably from Oakland County. The OAA was seeing the members were seeing the Macomb Area Conference, the MAC, how successful that league was going. They were seeing the Detroit Public School League, the PSL. But at that point, the OAA, the future OAA, was that of three small conferences. The Greater Oakland Activities League, the GOAL, the Metro Suburban League, and the Southeastern Michigan Conference. At that point, the members of the GOAL was Lake Orion, Clarkston, Pontiac Northern, Waterford Kettering, and Waterford Mods. Now, Ortonville-Brandon had joined the league prior, but then left a few years ago. And Ortonville-Brandon obviously considered joining in, wanted to get involved in this idea of this new mega conference as well. Now, the Metro Suburban featured Rochester Adams, Rochester, Troy Athens, Birmingham Groves, West Bloomfield, Bloomfield Hills Losser, Royal Oak Dondero, and Southfield Lathrop. Now, the members of the Southeastern Michigan Conference included Troy, Royal Oak Kimball, Birmingham Seaholm, Hazel Park, Ferndale, Berkeley, Bloomfield Hills Andover, Southfield, and Hazel Park. So those were the members that decided, okay, we want to unify the leagues. We want to unify the conference based on one big Oakland County league, mega conference. So as a result, the OAA, the Oakland Activities Association, was born. Now, the concept for it, a lot of it stemmed from football, but a lot of it also stemmed for other sports as well. Boys basketball, girls basketball. It gave an opportunity for bigger schools to play smaller schools. At that point, you had large enrollment schools such as Lake Orion and Clarkston, Troy, Rochesters, and then you had the smaller schools like Kimball, Dondero, Ferndale, Berkeley. Schools that were they based it upon the opportunity for the bigger schools to play the smaller schools. And they had hoped that by playing each other, they would play each other and play each other only. The OAA would grow in 1995 with the additions of Pontiac Central, who was seen as a natural rival to Pontiac Northern, is also based in Pontiac. Also, they could play the bigger schools like Lake Orion, Clarkston, but also Oak Park. They added Oak Park, who was from southern Oakland County, in 1995, and Oak Park could play, Hazel Park, Berkeley, Ferndale, Southfield. And then in 1996, the league added in Clawson, Madison, Lamphere, and Avondale, all of which were familiar rivals back when in the 1970s and the 1980s when there was the Oakland-Macomb area conference based upon when both those schools, all those schools were major members of it. They had rivalries with Lake Orion in the past. If you watched my interview with Don Hoganson, I would encourage you to watch about the natural rivalries that occurred in there. But at that point, the OAA had about 28 schools. This was probably the highest it was at the time. And at that point, there was, one of the things is the OAA set up a charter. They had a charter where the divisions would be based off particularly football, but also for basketball and other sports, that it would be based off of success, but they also consider enrollment. But one thing that they were dead set against was geographic divisions. They were not in support of having geographic divisions. They wanted to base it upon success. The OAA was always concerned about disbanding because of based off geographic. And also, but the thing is, if you go in geographic divisions, it's so much easier with the travel. I ended up finding out later on that there were several schools that were against geographic divisions, particularly Southfield, who wanted to travel and wanted to travel to bigger schools so that their kids could have the experience of playing bigger schools and going out to nicer venues, which is not a bad thing. But I mean, travel-wise, my preference would have been geographic divisions. Now, the OAA during that time would benefit from divisions. They would usually go by 4 divisions. Once in a while, they'll go by 3. They would have, usually the bigger schools would be Division 1 or Division 2. Then the smaller schools would be Division 3 or Division 4. Several schools became very successful. Schools like Lake Orion and Clarkson were very successful in football. Pontiac Northern, Pontiac Central, successful in basketball. It was just, it was very, Groves and Seaholm in soccer. It was a very, very successful time in the OAA from 1994 to about let's say maybe 2001. And with that, when we come back, I'm going to bring up what happened in 2001. Here on History Now, here on ONTV.
We own a Habitat home.
I love working on my Habitat home.
Soy dueño de una casa de Habitat.
My neighbor is a Habitat homeowner.
Being a Habitat homeowner has changed our lives.
My mortgage payment for Habitat is less than what I pay for rent.
Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County currently has homes available with mortgage payments lower than most rent payments. If you or someone you know needs decent and affordable housing, call 248-338-1843 or visit our website at habitatoakland.org.
Welcome back to History Now here on ONTV. I'm your host, Anthony Termina. I want to talk about the OAA and what was happening with it back in 2001. As I made mention, the OAA formed in 1994, and it continued to be a very successful divisions until 2001, when there were some small rumblings that were occurring. Now the OAA was still expanding back in 2001, but they were also considering, but they were starting to lose some members a little bit. There were some issues that were going on. The OAA in 2001-2002 lost Brandon. Now Brandon in 2001-2002, their enrollment was pretty small. Brandon was playing, they were playing Clawson, Madison, Lamphere on a consistent basis, and they were also having to travel those distances. They were having to travel to Andover, they were having to travel to Losser, to Dondero. It was just a mess for Brandon because Brandon had to do so much travel, and they didn't really have natural rivals down south. So Brandon was looking to leave the OAA at that point, and they found a a good suitor in the Flint Metro League, which, if you look at the travel in the Flint Metro League, they had Oxford, they had Holly, Lapeer East, Lapeer West, Linden, and Fenton. So realistically, and those are distances that are closer to Brandon. So naturally, when the opportunity came for Brandon, it was really a no-brainer for them. They chose to leave the OAA to head off to the Flint Metro League, where they could be competitive. Brandon, realistically, they didn't want to play South, and realistically, they didn't want to compete with Clarkston or Lake Orion. They didn't have the numbers to do so. So as a result, Brandon ended up moving to the Flint Metro League. But at the same time, there were some good things going on for the OAA as well. Stony Creek from Rochester, the Rochester School District, built a new high school to help with the overload of kids that were coming in the Rochester School District, and they called it Rochester Hills Stony Creek. Stony Creek formed in 2002, and also the league ended up getting some big-time schools from the Western Lakes Association, which was Farmington, North Farmington, and Farmington Hills Harrison. Harrison was very, very rich on football tradition. Also getting all three schools from the Western Lakes Association, it ultimately resulted in the downfall of the Western Lakes Association, and as a result, they ended up merging with the Kensington Valley Conference to form the Kensington Lakes Association, which included some Oakland County schools like Novi and down the Milford, Lakeland, and the western areas of the county. And as a result, the OAA continued to add on to their mega conference, and they continued to expand. But we ended up seeing that not everybody was particularly happy. The OAA continued to base their divisions off success. There ended up becoming, especially in football, there ended up becoming a situation where there was a Big Four emerging, which was Lake Orion, Clarkston, Rochester Adams, and Farmington Hills Harrison, all in the same division. So a lot of the other schools, particularly led by Birmingham Groves, complained about, hey, all these four schools are making the playoffs every year. Why can't, they're not allowing us to make the playoffs every year. The OAA wanted to represent well, and they wanted to have as many teams as possible in the playoffs for football. So in 2007, the OAA made a move to split the so-called Big Four up. They had Lake Orion and Clarkston be in one division, and they had Adams and Harrison be in another. They split the divisions up based on their school's enrollment, and also it gave other teams an opportunity to compete for potentially OAA division championships. But as a result, the OAA kind of went away from the divisions based on success and focused more on going into the enrollment divisions. Now, as a result of that, there would be kind of smaller schools would not play the bigger schools, especially in football. Also, there were situations where school districts were in situations where they cannot control. And as a result, kids were leaving the school district. Schools were losing money, and it caused schools to merge, which also eventually emerged in decreasing the number of schools. Royal Oak Kimball, and Royal Oak Dondero ended up merging back in 2006. They merged to become Royal Oak High School. In 2009, Pontiac Northern and Pontiac Central ended up merging their schools into where all the kids were now going to Northern. They closed Central for now. They became Pontiac High School. In 2013, Losser and Andover merged their kids. They became Bloomfield Hills High School. And then also coming up very shortly or very soon, we're going to see Southfield and Lathrop merge, and they'll become Southfield Unified High School in 2016. Also, we saw the departures of Waterford Kettering and Waterford Mott. They had issues with the competition, particularly playing Lake Orion and Clarkston on a consistent basis. They would leave the OAA in 2008 to go to the KLAA in hopes to have better competition. There was several non-Oakland County schools that tried to join. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the OAA preference was preference to Oakland County teams. Grand Blanc and Davison both tried to join back in the early 2010s. They were both denied. At that time, the Big Nine Conference, which both teams were part of, were dissolving. And they were both looking to join other they were looking to join the OAA, looking to join a stable conference. To me personally, it was very unfortunate that both of them were denied because it would have brought in new fresh competition. Davison offers wrestling, very strong wrestling program. Grand Blanc offers a very strong all-around competitive product all over the board. But the OAA also did get Oxford to join. Oxford at the time in 2010, the Flint Metro League, they have a certain amount of students that you can have in order to be a part of their league. Oxford was growing off of that, was growing above that. So as a result, Oxford could no longer be a part of the Flint Metro League. And Oxford reached out to the OAA, particularly Lake Orion. And as a result, Oxford got approved to be part of the OAA, and Oxford would join the league in 2010. At present, one school could and is possibly looking to maybe join the OAA, and that's Lapeer. Lapeer at present has Lapeer plays with the same youth football league that Lake Orion, Clarkston, Waterfords, etc. are in. Lapeer also has a very good competitive football team. They offer several competitive athletics. The only challenge is that obviously the OAA likes to have a preference in Oakland County, and that the southern schools of Oakland County don't necessarily want to travel to Lapeer. Obviously, travel is an issue with OAA, especially with the northern schools having to travel down south, and vice versa. Also, the natural rivalries that teams have, it's just not there. But back with Lapeer, Lapeer, I think personally Lapeer would make a great fit for the OAA. Lapeer has said they want in the past. We'll have to see how it goes. Hopefully they get in, but we'll have to see how it goes. So Lapeer is trying to join the league again. They're right now currently in the Saginaw Valley League, and they're not, their travel there is crazy as well. So we'll have to see if Lapeer will join the league. We'll have to see if Davison will join the league. When we come back to History Now, I want to talk about the future of the OAA here on History Now on ONTV. Welcome back to History Now here on ONTV. I'm talking about the OAA, the Oakland Activities Association. I want to talk about what is the future of the OAA. As I've talked about in the past with the OAA, it's in the air right now. You've got, the OAA's got, as I said, the schools are merging. You got a lot of schools merging. You got some schools, some non-Oakland County schools that want to join. Some Oakland County schools that have expressed interest in wanting to join. Then there's some possible disbanding the OAA. It's obviously not all mega conferences last forever. You're looking at potentially down the line, you're looking at with enrollment. There's a lot of the southern schools are pretty low on enrollment, and as a result, they could look at leaving the OAA, or they could look at potentially closing down their doors as a school. Farmington Hills Harrison comes to example. The Farmington School District is losing kids, and they have thought about potentially closing down Harrison, which that could happen in the next 2 to 3 years. It could very, very well happen. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. There could be the OAA, if it wants to survive as a conference, it's gonna really have to look at expanding. It really should look at reconsidering non-Oakland County members, particularly Lapeer, who has expressed interest in wanting to join. Davison's another school that's expressed interest in joining. Grand Blanc could be another school to look at. Also, maybe why not look back at Brandon? I mean, look at Brandon. Could Brandon want to come back? Maybe Holly. Holly could be a school, especially if the Flint Metro League closes its doors, which could happen. Could Holly join the league? Could Kettering and Mott want to come back into the OA? It's very possible. Could Lakeland join? It's very, very possible, especially with the how the KLAA is and with there's no upward mobility. Whereas in the OA, you have a chance to move up a division. Football, it's every 2 years. Other sports, it's every year. And spring sports, for the most part, is geographic. So, but how it works is you got the ADs. All the ADs would vote. Each would get 1 vote. Quite often or not, the smaller schools would often gang up and vote no. Sometimes the bigger schools would do the same thing. So you look at the future of the OAA, it really, really is in the air. It's going to come down to the athletic directors. It's going to come down to the principals. The principals are the ones who decide the football divisions. It's going to come down to the athletic directors and the principals. Do they want to continue the OAA? Is the OAA good business? Is it good investment? We'll have to find out. We'll have to see what happens going forward. Obviously, I'd like to see the natural rivalries stay. Lake Orion's got natural rivalries, Oxford and Clarkston, and Adams and Rochester, Stony. I'd like to see the natural rivalries stay. Even if it means having to disband the OAA, I'd like to still see the natural rivalries. Well, we'll have to see what happens with the OAA. As I said, the future's in the air. There's plenty of question marks. All right, Lake Orion, this is it for this week's episode of History Now. For now, I'm heading off. Lake Orion, have a great night.